Okay, so first of all, so that you understand the reasons for this subject and why we're trying a course that was not one of our regular courses in the computing science department, neither in the business administration program. We have been dealing with things that are related to collective intelligence for many years. But only about 4 or 5 years back, I started reading some of the materials that were being produced and that were coined as collective intelligence. And I thought it was a really clever thing to study, because I think the future of our society will be based on collective intelligence. In fact, the world has always, and humans have always relied on the intelligence of others to build on it and to make a better world out of this world that we have here, right? But more recently, this term has started appearing in front of my eyes, and I thought, well, maybe this is a different way of talking about things that we were already doing, right? I have been studying collective intelligence probably since the 90s, and I will prove that to you today with some of the, and I just didn't call it that way, right? Many people have. So at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, they started let's say, a research group in, I think, in 2004, 2005, that was really where they used the term collective intelligence. And, well, we're sort of 10 years behind them in that sense, starting to use the term now. But as we usually do in science, our idea is that we can stand on the shoulders of the giants, as Newton used to say. We will try to recover this time by checking what these guys have been doing at the MIT during all this period, and also bringing content and science that is being developed in other areas. My background, although I'm an engineer, electrical engineering originally, my master's and my doctoral studies were in business, and I always look at the information systems from a business perspective, or from a business perspective, or from a social perspective. But I know that there is a very limited view to this broad subject. We'll definitely have to bring insights from several different other subjects. And I'm pleased to have here, what's her name? Adriana, who's studying geoprocessing. So she comes from I don't even know how to say geodesy. So from all different areas. And I have here with me Professor Thiago Silva, who is from our computer department. But who also tries to apply computing to solve social and many social problems of our cities. And so the idea of this is not really that it is a course in which we are teaching something and you are learning something. We want to use the principles of collective intelligence here, and we want to build a collective knowledge in which we are all taking part of, right? So the concept of this course being done somehow over technology will hopefully make it so that it's not so focused on whoever is speaking here. If it's me, either if it's me or Thiago, we'll have at least 3 other professors involved here. Jurandir Peinado, professor from the business department. He's not here today, but he will be with us for many of the other classes. Who's also an enthusiast of the idea of dealing, researching, studying, applying in businesses the concepts of collective intelligence. So he wasn't able to be here today, but he will be with us in future classes. We also have Walter Moreno, who's maybe some of you in information systems have already read something that he wrote. He's one of our major researchers in information systems in Brazil. He's at IBMEC, a school in Rio. I don't know how much he will interact with us in this course directly in our forums and in our discussions. But you'll see that he's already listed there as someone who will take part of the course in the Moodle platform, and he has contributed to some of the discussions that I had in the past about this topic. So I think it's fair to acknowledge him at least as someone who has already provided us with ideas for this. There is Ricardo Engelbert. I'm sure that those of you who have already been my students in some other class before have already read some of the stuff that we wrote together. Ricardo was once one of my doctoral students. Now he's also an IS professor. And I would say that many ideas in this that we'll discuss here were generated from discussions that I had with him, and also courses that he has already prepared in the past and has already taught in the past here at PI, like here in Curitiba. So he has some really nice slides that eventually some of them will show up here in our discussion. Of course, as most of the courses that he was teaching in the past were more like in like extension courses, he was not so concerned with the scientific, scientific approach to what he was doing then, but he's also an enthusiast of this thing. And we also have Professor Zandra Balbino. She's a Brazilian who teaches in Université de Quebec in Canada. She's also involved with this thing. Maybe be with us sometime. I mean, the good thing about this technology is that after we learn how to use it in a proper way, it allows us to give people voice wherever. We don't have to be all in the same room. In fact, if any of you have any problems to come to class any of the days that you're here, you will see that it's just as easy to put your headphones and a mic and do it from wherever you are. So as I said before, we have students that were interested, and usually master students from countries such as China, Canada, Sweden, France, India, USA, and Germany that interacted with me over the last 2 weeks, and which made me think of preparing this in this different way. And this is why it's so, I mean, we're still not very acquainted of how this thing works, because we had to very quickly settle a way for these people like Abhirup to be with us either in real time or eventually later. In fact, my idea was that people could be with us in the forums afterwards, but it's good if they can have this as well. And maybe this will also be a material, if we can turn this into streaming afterwards, it's a material that is there for us to use in the future. Right? So first thing, it's not going to be a class like a traditional class, teacher-centered class. We already have some reading material that you have to read from week to week. Fridays is the day that we meet for this, so well, Thursday nights will probably be the that day that most people will say I still have something that I have to do before going to bed, and it's another 3 hours of reading or something. But please do that before you come to class, so that we can engage in a discussion here. We'll try to have at least part of this discussion in a written way in the forums for several reasons. The first one of them is that we are generating knowledge that is a little more permanent, in the sense that whatever we write there is there, available to us in the future. Whatever we say here is gone with the wind, right? So it's good to have things in written as well. It may also be good for those of you who eventually find it easier to express yourselves in English by writing than by talking, right? And being a first experience in doing this, I thought it would be convenient to do it that way. So in many of our classes, we will have maybe a few minutes at the beginning in which one of us, one of the professors, will be in charge of saying a few things. But right after that, we will turn to our computers and interact with the questions that you yourselves will be posing about the text that we read, right? So the idea that we can use that, we'll probably use the forums that Moodle already offers us, and I think it would be wise to also try using the wiki tools. They are all very good for collective intelligence or for building collective projects, right? So I used the wikis in my undergrad courses for a while, and after that I dropped it because I thought it was easier to just use the forums. But for the purposes of this subject, this course here, I think a wiki, if we can have our Wikipedia of our course here, where everyone links other materials that you saw elsewhere, bring new papers that you read and you said, oh, this is cool, this is really related to what we're doing. I spent an hour reading it, so I think it's worth that other people do the same. And also to say, oh, please, I spent an hour reading this, please don't waste your time, it's not good enough. So I think that for that, wikis could be also a good tool. Right? So it's not going to be just a class. In fact, I hope it's not a class at all in the traditional way. That everyone is engaged in that, and that by the end of the course, we have developed material that is interesting, or I don't know what we're going to do from what we do here. Maybe if we're good in coordinating our activities, maybe we could have a book written by 30 people on collective intelligence. Of course, that's a little challenging. So maybe we could have a book. Maybe we could have just some interesting forum discussions. That's already, I'll be happy with that. Maybe each one of you could have a project. That was one of the things that I was discussing with Tiago during the week, was that I usually have an exam at the end of my courses. I think it makes it sound a little more serious, and an exam is always good for people to know that, well, I really have to focus on what I'm doing. If there isn't a little pressure, we end up not putting the effort that we need. So I usually tend to have the exam as at least one of the alternatives, right? So for those of you who just want to read, to discuss with us, reading is not enough. We'll have to put effort into bringing knowledge into the group, right? Building collective intelligence. But for those of you who are taking this as a more informative class, just as to complement something else that you're doing, the exam may be a good way out. Like you read all the stuff, you discuss with us here during the classes, and by the end of the term, you write an exam, you get a grade, and it's okay. This is one possibility. This is I would say the easiest track. Another possible track that we were discussing is you think of a project that involves collective intelligence, and you present us that project. It doesn't have to be a concluded project. It may be a project for something that you will do in the future. It could be a project for your dissertations. It could be a project for those we have some undergrad students here as well. So it could be a project for just a biology course that you're taking in your undergrad school. But that's an alternative that I'd say this is for those who want to put more effort into it, still more effort, right? Because it's not going to be anything. It has to be something that is, of course, grounded on all the issues that we discuss here, and at the same time, that makes sense to your lives, to what you want to do in the future. Okay? So this is definitely another possibility. Some of you will take an exam at the end of this course. Some of you will say, I have a project here for, hopefully some of you will engage collectively in projects that may be feasible after you complete this course. Right? Yeah, I think this is the way it goes. For some of the international students, we have our school is really I'd say it's really conservative in general. To grant certificates, we have to have a signed a signed agreement between universities. But I promise that you will get at least a letter from me saying that you completed this course, and I think my word is worth something. It will probably not be worth credits, but it's something that you can have there in your resume, and it could eventually help. Hopefully the knowledge that we build together is going to be much more important than any certificate that you can get. Right, so I said that we developed the idea of this course on research that we were doing in the past and courses that we were teaching in the past that didn't ever mention collective intelligence as a, let's say, a keyword. But I would like to use today's class for a review of my information systems and organization class that some of you took at the undergraduate level, some of you are taking now. So for those of you, I think there are 2 or 3 here that are taking this course this semester, or this trimester in the graduate program, you will have a notion of what that in the past. So you will recognize some of the topics or some of the papers that I will mention here. The idea here is just to tell you how I got to think of collective intelligence at this moment. I thought of this course first, but when Tiago got involved, when Jurandir Peinado, Engelbert, Zandra, Walter, all of the others that contributed to either with papers who have already contributed or who promised that will still contribute, when they got engaged, it became something that is not a project of one person any longer. It's I hope it will become a major area of research for us here at UTFPR, mainly being able to connect 2 important graduate courses that we have, that is the applied computing in one end of the spectrum here, and the business administration at the other. I hope that in the future we can have researchers and students from these 2 schools working, and in really near future, right, working together in a way that those in the computer department can really focus more on the artifacts, the software, hardware, or whatever is required to help collective intelligence being achieved. And those in the business department, we don't have a sociology department. I'd be very happy to have them around as well. But people from other departments, in our case here, the business department, helping with concepts, ideas, as each one could focus more on what their major expertise is. Right? Okay, so I will try to switch now to a different mode here, in which I'll show you my screen. Let me just see if it will work. Yes, it will, I think. I will show you my screen. Please don't touch your screens, otherwise I don't know what will happen, as we are all presenters right now. And basically what I will show you is Oh, this is, of course, you're seeing my screen, then see my screen, and this will, but maybe I can change. I mean, no, it's not that I want to. Are you seeing my screen? Yes. Okay, the screen that you have there is probably, it is if you're seeing what I'm seeing here, it is, well, the courses page on our Moodle. If eventually anyone gets to this video, it has a really long name, I will never. But there's that tiny URL dash collective intelligence hyphen UTFPR. I think that will take you there as well. So what we have here is the way we structured some of the discussions that we'll take during the semester. You'll see that this will change. Hopefully it will change, and will change a lot, right, over the next few weeks as you contribute, as other professors contribute, and as I mean, we are all guinea pigs here. We're doing this for the first time. Okay? At least, if we were at the MIT, they would have it all very well structured already. But we don't. So, okay, what I want to show you is for our class of today, I said my entire information systems and organizations course in one day. This will also give Thiago a little perspective of why I thought of this thing. First paper that, when I read that and when I was teaching these courses to my students, I never mentioned collective intelligence in the past, but you see that was all necessary for me to understand collective intelligence the way I think today, and also probably for collective intelligence based on our computer networks, on information technology to evolve to a much higher stage than it was before we had all this technology to support collective intelligence. Right? Collective intelligence happens since the first two monkeys or human-like beings perceived that together they could achieve more than on their own, right? And started collaborating somehow, right? So it's not a new thing. Not even the term is that new. I think we'll probably figure out after we start reading that the term has been around for quite a while. It definitely became much more important as a research topic as we now have technologies that put millions of people together, right? And allow them to do things that were, if not impossible, very difficult to do without the possibility of coordination, of motivation, and whatsoever that we now have. Okay, so the first paper that I wanted to very quickly discuss with you is this Venkatraman and Henderson, 98. Please don't click on anything. Oh, my session has expired, so let me just... Are you seeing all of that? Yeah. Okay, I think it's uploading the file. You have the file, you can see it afterwards. I just want to show you a few things here. In fact, in this paper, the only thing that I want to show you is, what is this? All right, the thing that I want to show you is a figure, this figure here. Does the technology work okay for you? Do you see a picture there? Okay. So this is what these guys thought of in 1998. So we're talking about almost 15 years ago. What they were thinking about, what they call here a virtual organization. In fact, they were thinking, how can organizations virtually organize to profit from the new technologies that became available in the second half of the 20th century, right? And they conceived this, sorry for those who have seen this many times, but it's again a way of you to think of this again. They thought of three major, what they call vectors, in which IS could contribute to develop better organizational strategies, or organizational strategies that could take an advantage of the use of computers in and by organizations. The first one was what they call the customer interaction. Okay, if you think for collective intelligence, now customer interaction, why would you want to collect and to relate or to interact with customers? During the whole Industrial Revolution, the concept was, I produce something and I push it to the markets, right? And the market will deal with it. Well, they either like it. If they don't like it, tough luck, because that's what we have for them, right? But of course, times changed. Some organizations have perceived that there are other ways in which they can be of more value to their customers if they try to understand what the customers need. So if we sort of build a dialogue with customers. Building dialogues with customers was something that was already possible much before the Industrial Revolution. In fact, that was what the handcraftsmen used to do when they went see the king, measure the king's feet to make shoes that were personalized, that were made for that king. The only problem was that the market was just the king and some nobles that were able to pay for for that kind of work, right? So the Industrial Revolution was an important step of improving everyone else into consuming goods for the good and for the bad. Anyway, let's say at least for the good for now, right? But it came at this bias. I mean, we were able to consume products, but it had to be whatever the companies were willing to provide us with, right? Henry Ford, one of Henry Ford's most famous quotations is that you can have whatever car you want, but it will be a black Ford Model T or whatever, right? Because it doesn't make sense, or it didn't make sense at that time, the early 1900s, to manufacture different cars. It would make production lines more complicated to run, and it would raise costs, and they wanted to have low costs so that everyone could have their products. In fact, in that sense, Ford's intention was that anyone who worked in his production, in the production line of his company, could buy one of the cars that they were producing, which is at least something nice, right? We now see that many of the companies that still use that kind of paradigm of producing cheap products, they still are producing in large scales. They many times manufacture products that their own employees are not able to buy. Okay, but okay, those times are gone, right? Times that you could just produce whatever you wished, and it was not hope that people would buy it. And say, well, if you want, you buy that. If you don't, tough luck. You don't have another alternative, other alternatives, right? Now, people do have alternatives, and alternatives in general come from companies that, to some extent, understood this concept of we have to talk to the customers and understand what they want. And by understanding what they want, we are building intelligence, right? Business intelligence based on the customer's wishes, needs, or whatever, right? So interacting with customers provides companies, organizations with the possibility of building collective intelligence. Mr. Venkatraman and Mr. Henderson, when they wrote this paper, they never wrote collective intelligence anywhere in their paper. It's not a keyword, and it's not even mentioned. But they were talking about collective intelligence already. They were talking about building intelligence based on the relationship of organizations with their customers, right? Well, the model here has different stages. Stage 1, Stage 2, Stage 3. I don't want to bother too much about the stages right now. I mean, he wrote this in 1998. It's a miracle that they were so good in thinking about how things will develop. But I would say that, in fact, that's one of the questions that I have already posed in our forum is if you had to rebuild Mr. Venkataraman and Henderson's model, in which ways now, 15 years later, in which ways do you think that it could be adjusted, refined, or improved? Based on the knowledge that we have, I mean, they were forecasting the future. We know what happened, right? So he mentions here remote experience with products and services. Well, if you think about the websites of any company does that to some extent. Some do it better than others, but whatever company has at least a website, even if it's a static page on the web, is already doing some sort of remote, providing the customers with some remote experience. But then stages 2 and 3, they are a little more sophisticated, and I think that many companies still could get some advice from these guys here, right? Dynamic customization. Dynamic customization is I'm not personalizing the products that I manufacture, but I am building a dialogue with the customer to understand what the needs and requirements are, and I am, as possible, including that knowledge that I have into the product that I am manufacturing for that customer specific. Not for every customer, exactly the same thing for everyone. What does that customer need? And dynamic customization is possible because of many of the technologies that the computer industry has developed. It's made automation easier, cheaper than it was in the past, but it also made it in a way that we can, for each item that we are going to manufacture, we can check on specifications in a database and make that item different from the previous one, and they're still produced sort of in scale, right? It's a little more sophisticated, a little more techy scale, but it's still scale production with different results, right, for each customer. So this is probably where many companies can nowadays provide customers with a personalized experience, right? It's not really personalized; it's customized, but it involves the company getting information from the customers and using this information to provide customers with a product that fits their needs in a way that it was not possible in the past. I'd say that many companies still didn't reach this stage 2, right? So it would definitely be one to be better explored. And, well, I don't want to go through all the stages, but anyway, you understand that what they're saying is that you should get involved with customers and learn from them, right? And of course, this learning in the case, and mainly in the case of organizations that work with scale products, is not a learning process in which you want one employee to talk to one customer. It's like millions of customers at one end and a database at the other side, right? Have your customers talk to your systems, organize, collect data, analyze this data, and respond to the knowledge that you build from this data so that each one of those million customers gets, in quotation marks, a more personalized experience, right? This was the first vector, and it already meant building collective intelligence based on a relationship with customers. And now we already have one of the concepts of collective intelligence. It's not only based on humans' interaction. It could be human computer, and in many cases that's why it became so relevant. Now we can put all the computer power of the world to help us organize, coordinate human activities. But it's still reliant on humans, right? When we're talking about collective intelligence, at least in this course, we're talking about human intelligence, right? It can be collected, it can be organized, it can be added to other people's intelligence, but it's still, we're talking about human intelligence. We're not talking about artificial intelligence. In fact, we may, in many cases, for those in the computer science school, we may be sort of finding ways of cheating or beating their traditional approach to solving problems that would be, let's solve it by means of algorithms, right? No, let's solve it by means of engaging people that are willing to give their time, are happy to share their efforts to build something. Let's gather that and turn that into something of more value, either to the whole collective of people or to whoever was smart enough to decide that I want to harness the intelligence of others and use it for my own profits. In fact, some of the most profitable companies of today do exactly that. Right? Google harnesses all our efforts into linking. I mean, we link our web pages to other pages. We link whatever hyperlinking we do on the web. Google goes there, gets that, and converts our knowledge into their products. So we are all working for Google. Anytime we build a page and put a link in it, on it to another page. We're also working for Google anytime we search something. Because when we search something, we tell Google that that's a topic that is hot in that area, in that geographic area or whatever. And that is also, we're helping our collective intelligence. Together, we're telling them that that's relevant for Google people, and that becomes valuable information for their business. So we'll see Google, Facebook, and many of these companies that try to get the knowledge of everyone and make a profit of it, that they're very successful. And we'll also discuss, of course, more, let's say, it's not more naive, but less capitalistic ventures as the Wikipedia or even the development of an operational system such as Linux, right? Where people were there putting their effort intentionally to help build something. It's almost like building the pyramids of Egypt in our own times, right? Someone in the future, when trying to understand what motivated this culture of ours, they may get to Linux, for example, and say, how did that ever happen, right? It's the same way as we look at the pyramids now and say, who put all the efforts to build that? I mean, if we think, there is another mic open, that's enough. If we think of any huge enterprise as a collective intelligence project, it becomes something many times simpler, right? It's much simpler to understand how the pyramids were built in Egypt if you think that each slave put a block of stone there, right? They had millions of slaves, millions of blocks put together and build something that when you look at it and say, who would build that? Seems so unbelievable to us. Okay, second vector for Venkataraman and Henderson was asset configuration. They call here virtual sourcing. Asset configuration was, what they meant by that was connecting to suppliers in a way that suppliers became sort of part of their own business or part of their own organization without the bias, the usual biases of interacting with other external suppliers. Nowadays we talk a lot about outsourcing, and again, I don't want to be too deterministic on the way I believe technology was the cause for that, but it clearly is very related to it. Information technology made the interaction between organizations to become easier, right? It reduced what we call transactional costs of dealing with an external partner. So it made this option become, in fact, it made this become an option. Beforehand, companies had to build everything on their own because it's not impossible, very costly to develop their projects involving third parties. Now it's easy. I mean, everyone is connected. Send a message here, it goes to a server, to a satellite, to the other side of the earth, comes back in less than a second. So it's easy to connect. So technology there allows, again, for different structures to develop different ways of working, different ways of organizing work. And this was another way Mr. Venkataraman and Henderson thought of the use of technologies to support different strategies than in the past for organizations. They said, you don't have to do it all by yourself any longer. It became technology, makes it cheaper for your company to relate to other companies. Technology allows for you to choose among all possible suppliers the one or the ones that have the better products. Right? Yeah. Definitely, Kanban is a technique, or I will not get into a discussion if it's a technology. We could call it a technology as well. Kanban is the way that the Japanese think of or thought of a way of producing in which you're producing in smaller quantities, and you only produce when the next stage in the production, in the value chain, has a demand for that product. It also relates to this, right? Of course, Kanban was thought of not as something dependent on information technology, or at least not in electronic information technology. It depends on information systems, developing a system, information system that works well among different organizations. It doesn't necessarily rely on high tech, right? But it still, it happened probably at the same time, also because when we have technology shifts, they allow us for mind shifts as well, right? Difficult to say what comes first, and I don't want to get into that argument here, but Kanban became a reasonable alternative for companies here in the West at the same time as information technology was starting to allow companies to better relate to other organizations. As a matter of fact, until the 60s or 70s, I remember that I once read it, I don't know where I read that. I've been trying to find it for quite some time now. I once read that in the 60s, Volkswagen had the largest bakery in the country, in Brazil. Largest bakery to make breads, right? Why so? It was probably difficult, expensive to relate to the baker in the corner, right? Of course, transaction costs were higher, and at the same time, it was the mindset of the time was, well, if someone is going to have a profit on that, on whatever activity, why not me, right? The two things were connected, because nowadays we tend to think differently, because what we think is, well, money is scarce, I can't do everything, so I'll do what I believe that is more profitable to my organization. I do what I think that we do better, or do better, or want to do better than others. So I'm trying to excel at that. But other stuff, I will find someone who thinks that that's their business, because they will do that with more enthusiasm than I will. And besides, they will put whatever investment is required, and I can only invest in only what is my own core business. Right? Core business is something that a term that started being heard in the 90s, but I'm sure that if you look for any authors trying to defend the idea of companies should focus on their core business in the 60s, if you find anything, it's going to be very rare, and it's not going to be mainstream. Right? Mainstream was, I do the business because it's easier to connect with people that are more equal my own employees. I can sort of tell them what to do, and they will do it. And also because, well, if the baker is going to have a profit on me, and if I already have the demands of 100,000 loaves of bread every day to feed my workers at the production lines. For those who are not here with us and don't know the Brazilian reality, we have some very strict and interesting labor laws in the country, and that get very detailed to what has to be done. And for example, our workers can only work such amount of hours before they're granted a stop, and if it's in a production line, I'm not sure if it's still compulsory, but you should feed them. You should give them something to eat before they start working again. So it made a lot of sense for Volkswagen to have the bakery at that stage. It wouldn't make any sense today because transaction costs are much lower, and Volkswagen now understands that it's better to have their mechanical engineers work on developing good cars than running a bakery, right? But this all came, these ideas were sort of evolving in the 80s and the 90s, and so it was, I think it was clever that these guys here came with this important vector in which IT could help organizations succeeding in their businesses by allowing them to connect better to customers, to suppliers that were not departments of their own organizations, suppliers outside suppliers or third parties. Okay? Well, this is again building collective intelligence, right? It's again engaging in interactions with others and becoming better by being together than they could if they were on their own. Right? So the second vector, it's interesting how the second vector relates to the first, because, for example, for you to develop dynamic customization, which was stage 2 of customer interaction, it would probably be required that you first had your products or turned your product into a modular thing, right? Dynamic customization means organizing modules or parts of a product in a different way so that it looks different, it's perceived as something different by the customer, by the end customer. But to do that, we have to use a sort of a Lego scheme, right? Parts that you build in a different way. You can build a house, but you can also build a car. Well, maybe not so extreme, but you can build as we had a few years ago here, an Audi A3 or a Volkswagen Golf, the same production line, actually the same car, but perceived by the market as two different things because different modules are placed on top of the basic product to make it be perceived as different. So that dynamic customization requires the product to be modular. If the product is one only thing, an integral thing that is not divided in smaller parts that you could change and replace by other parts to make different products, dynamic customization wouldn't be possible. We would only be able to do the personalization of the art craftsmen of prior to the Industrial Revolution, right? They mentioned here process interdependence. Process interdependence is what I hope that we build here when we start discussing the text in this module, right? Some of us have one understanding, others have a different understanding in a different way, and when we share our different perspectives, we build different knowledge and possibly, we believe, better knowledge, right? Resource coalition, it's what they thought of as the extremist use of process interdependence. It's that situation in which if a fly is there flying and observing a process, the fly is unable to say who is part of organization A and who's part of organization B. They work so well connected one to another that this coalition really works as if it was just one organization. Well, that's what they thought. I certainly see that, well, with respect to asset configuration, many organizations still have to do the first tasks for stage one, right? Many organizations still don't even have a product that is modular enough for them to play with the parts in a way of producing products that are perceived as different by customers at the end of the day, and that will therefore, because they perceive products as different and as more adjusted to their own needs, they perceive that, they can perceive those products as more valuable. Right? For those of you who are not very into, production schemes of manufacturing, are not very familiar with manufacturing plants, everything, we can think here, for example, of Pietro's business, pizza making. Pietro is the owner of a pizza place here in Curitiba. I haven't tried his pizza yet, but maybe at the end of this course, as part of our collective intelligence, celebration, we could order some of his pizza. But how does pizza is a typical modular product, right? One module is the dough that has to be fixed beforehand, because they're lucky because the dough is the part that takes longer to fix anyway, right? But the dough is easier to predict as well. How much dough we will need on a Friday night for all the deliveries that we have to do? Well, we can count on our experience of previous Friday nights, and also we can count on our experience on rainy days or rainy nights, sunny nights. I don't know the business very well, but I understand that all of that previous knowledge is good to figure out how many pizzas we're going to sell tonight. But are they all going to be margarita or calabresa or whatever? Are we able to, in the morning, already say what the pizzas are going to be, what the modules that will have to go on top are going to be? No. So what we do, we start manufacturing the dough probably early in the afternoon, and that part is the same for everyone. Nobody's going to be able to get to the website or on there and say, oh, I would like that my dough was a little saltier than usual. They'll say, sorry, this is not personalization, it's customization. That part you can't change. Right? The part you can change is you can tell me the ingredients that go on top, because those are the modules that I can easily and quickly put together to make you perceive your order as your product as manufactured specially for you, right? I mean, Pizza Man works like that for ages, so it's not, many times we have to use old concepts to build new ways of dealing with our organizations. Many industrial manufacturing organizations of today would probably benefit a lot of rethinking their processes and their products, making them more modular, so that when they engage in a conversation with customers, that's vector number one, when they do that, and our technologies allow that, them to do that in a much easier and cheaper way today, when they do that, they can also provide customers with products that are more adjusted to their needs. Right? So this is all, again, it's based on building intelligence together with others. I think it's also, as I said before, they don't mention collective intelligence here, but that's what they are proposing that we should do. Oh, and then what to say about vector 3, right? Knowledge leverage. Knowledge leverage, intelligence and knowledge are very related, right? And the knowledge leverage vector that they're proposing there is all about gathering and being able to collect, organize, make sense of the knowledge that is obtained or that exists in the work unit. So, every worker in an organization has their own knowledge. So how can we deal with that? Either make them more, make their knowledge, allow them to do a better job, or make this knowledge available so that others can do the same, right? So here in this task level, stage number 1, they're saying we want to do something about the knowledge of a place of work. And then the other stages are we want to, to organize the knowledge of the organization. And stage 3, I confess to you that when I read this paper in the 90s, the late 90s, I didn't understand exactly what they were meaning by the professional community. It was only after I started taking part in Java forum groups, and then I said, oh, this is what this is really what they mean. And nowadays, I think we go much further than that. It's not only professional communities where people help other people that have the same, face the same professional problems that they do. Now we can extend this, and this would be already a hint for where we can go with the 4th stage, or can we replace this 3rd stage. Now we can think of the knowledge that exists in the whole world, right? It's available on the internet, and I usually say that when we don't know something nowadays, we go and check with the Grand Oracle, right? Mr. Google, who will very wisely tell us what. Last night I was telling my students in information systems and organization that I've experienced these little pieces of knowledge that are everywhere, that are available to anyone on the web. Now I've experienced some situations in which I benefit from that, and I have to acknowledge that I could only benefit from that because our mindset has already been changed to looking at Google before trying other ways of doing it. Right? I brew beer at home, and so I always collect bottles with my students, friends, and I always need bottles. And one of these days, I got this bottle that had the cork inside, right? And I said, oh, who did that to me? They're challenging me. What do they by any chance think that I can put beer on a bottle that has a cork inside? And I thought, but there has to be a way of getting this cork outside without having to break the bottle, right? So what I did, I could have relied on my research and development team, put a lot of people which I don't have, but if I were an organization, traditional organization, I would put 20 engineers to think about that, and I'm sure that in 6 months they would come up with a solution, probably using a laser to destruct or fragment that into it, and I would be able to solve my problem. But instead, I decided to go to the Grand Oracle and check. I don't even know what I wrote there, but it seems that Google now understands whatever stupid thing he writes. Even if the question is stupid, the answer seems to be good enough, right? And it turned out that the first result that they had, they solved my problem. So in that case, it was quicker than the research and development team working on the issue, and surely much less expensive. The solution was just get a plastic bag, one of those supermarket plastic bags, just turn it into a, roll it around itself so that it fits inside the bottle, turn the bottle upside down, the cork will come next to the bottleneck, blow into the bag, it will, will come bigger inside the bottle, and then pull it, and it works. So we can notice the knowledge is not the knowledge when we're thinking about knowledge. Here's not necessarily only the professional community. There is a lot of knowledge that is available there that can be used by an organization for their business purposes. But there's a lot of knowledge that we can use there also for building a better society, hopefully. Right? I want to be an optimist all the time. Many times I don't have many reasons for that, but I think that technology can be used if we as a society understand the ways that can happen. It can be used for very noble causes, such as getting the cork out of the bottle, right? As we did in that. So notice, 3 vectors, all of them involve, this third one is really collective intelligence. Is really concerned with organizing the intelligence that they had inside a department, stage 1, inside the whole organization, stage 2, and in the world and available to everyone, right? Which is number 2. Okay, so this was probably one of the first papers already in the 90s that I discussed a lot with my students all the time. I used it in my research. I was always thinking about this, building dialogues with customers, building relationships with suppliers. Until 2 or 3 years ago, I didn't think of that as collective intelligence, but it definitely is. Okay, so close this one and go to the second one, Makina 95. Well, I will open it here again. This is we have too little time for. I will open it here. It doesn't have any beautiful figure that I can show you, but it's only so that you know what text I'm talking about. What this guy, 1995, what this guy says here in real-time marketing is really, I think the message of the paper is really just one. You have to build a dialogue with your customers. In fact, this paper, I don't know if it inspired the other authors, but it's all about vector number 1 of Venkataraman and Henderson's model. They're saying marketing, traditional marketing doesn't work any longer. Customers are exposed to all sorts of media and are bombarded with advertisement all the time. They will not pay attention to your organization's business proposal or value proposal if you are not clever, if you don't do it in a different way, if you don't engage into a dialogue with your customers. So if you haven't read this paper yet, if you want to read it sometime, it's an interesting paper. It's 20 years old, 21 almost, so it's reached its majority. But I'm sure that you could still take to your bosses in the organization where you work and tell them, could you maybe, get some knowledge from this guy here, because what he was saying 20 years ago, I think we should be practicing today. So it's an interesting paper. I like this picture here, where they're discussing here. You all see the picture that I have here. Okay? Is this fast enough, or it takes? We have lag time. Let's go. Good. I'm impressed. So hopefully this technology will be good for the whole class. Okay. Here what Mr. McKenna is talking about is a project that Levi's had in the early 90s of making customized jeans, right? Customized jeans that people could buy not over the web, because in the early 90s, well, the web was already there, but it was only us here in the computer department that knew about it, right? I think that Google only started operating in 1999. So think what was the internet in 1992, for example, or 93, when Levi's was experiencing with manufacturing customized jeans. They were already doing things that Mr. Venkataraman and Mr. Henderson would propose in their paper afterwards. I mean, they were not. Usually, academics in business, we try to understand what's already happening. Right? In some cases, we organize things in a good way for the majority of the organizations to benefit from it, but we're not inventing anything. We're usually seeing something that, oh, someone has already made, and that makes sense. So Levi's was customizing jeans. And their main interest in doing that was building collective intelligence. Or at least one sort of collective intelligence. Don't worry, next week we'll discuss what collective intelligence is, and it will become more clear that we can use it in a very broad way. So, but in this case, they were trying to develop collective intelligence by collecting information from their users, the users that were happy to buy this product the way they were selling it, and using this information for other customers that would benefit from their traditional scale production. Right? Most companies like Levi's have products like in 4 or 5 different sizes, like here in Brazil it would be small, medium, large, extra large, or whatever. Of course, it's clustered that way. It always means that nobody gets a perfect fit, right? I always experience problems with shirts because I either have a very thin neck, or I have a very long arm. I don't know what my problem is, if it's a long arm or a thin neck, but a customized product would definitely fit me better, right? And would also probably fit better the company's own business in many ways, because if they sell me a customized product, they converted what used to be an off-the-shelf product in a order product, right? If I order something, I don't ask for a discount, for example. You only ask for a discount when you buy something that you don't want to buy, right? And you're not, or at least you're only offered a discount when whoever is selling the product looks at you and says, he's not going to buy it, so I have to give him an additional incentive. And the incentive is usually a discount. Right? We don't ask a discount for a product that was made specifically for us. Right? Or it's more difficult at least to do that. So they had this kind of, they could have this kind of benefit. They also got the information that was good to think of how to support other customers. Because after noticing that most of the people that ordered jeans, customized jeans, after noticing that their patterns were sort of deviated a little from the models you had, you would think, well, if they are statistically representative of the whole population, maybe I have to change the models I use, even for the mass markets, right? So there was a lot of information to be gained there. Right? What Mr. McKenna couldn't tell us, because it hadn't happened yet, was that this program here was unsuccessful. Levi's had to give it up the 1 year after or so. Not because it was not clever to build a dialogue with the customers, but probably because they were ahead of their times. The customers or some customers were happy with the concept and were willing to participate on that, but they still relied, they couldn't buy through the web. So they still relied on the retailers to support them, taking measures of customers and inputting those measures into Levi's computer system. And one thing that we very soon learned about information systems is that different stakeholders have different perceptions about what those systems are going to cause to their businesses. And we don't have to be very brilliant to understand that what Levi's was introducing was not very favorable to the business of the retailers. Right? Retailers want people to go to their shops to buy Levi's jeans because they also buy belts and shoes and whatever. If they're not going to the retailer shop to buy jeans any longer because they are buying over the web or whatever other scheme, even if it's through letter or mail, that will take customers out of their shop. That was not to their interest, so they sort of boycotted that's my impression of what happened here. Of course, this became very common lately. We do have this kind of business propositions of selling clothes, customized clothes over the web. But now we have the web. We have ways of escaping the traditional retailers, even if they're not happy with it. But the main thing here in this paper is, again, build a dialogue with your customer. Try to get all the information you can from the customer. Respond to your customer, because the dialogue has to be a dialogue. Dialogue means both ways. So if you keep asking customers to provide you with information and you don't give any feedback, it becomes almost like those surveys that students do on courses, and they many times don't feel that they help or anything. And then we see how many students really fill those forms. 20%, 30%. There was no dialogue being built, right? When you build a dialogue and people at the other side understand that the dialogue will continue, they will be happy to contribute. That's something that we need for collective intelligence, right? We have to give something back. Otherwise, people will start feeling that they're being exploited. I'm saying, even for those of you who had never thought of Google as a collective intelligence miner and a collective intelligence a company that gets our intelligence and doesn't pay us for that, we are still happy to do that, because somehow they pay us, right? They give us the service that they provide us with is more than enough to justify the service that we are providing them. Right, so it's good business it seems to be good business for everyone, but it's because the dialogue is there, right? You place an effort and they give you something back. Okay, and then we have Nambi-san and Nambi-san. I'm telling you, this is a whole course in just a couple of hours. Nambi-san and Nambi-san, they don't refer to Makina in their paper, but when we stand on the shoulders of giants, we cannot necessarily always acknowledge what those giants or who those giants were, right? Maybe there were others in the middle, and so I'm not saying that they base their paper on Makina and didn't give acknowledgement. It's not that at all. But I'd say that their paper definitely goes much further many years later. So the web was already there. In 1995, again, the web was still a child, a very early child, very early stages. But here in 2007, 2008, when Nambi-san wrote this paper, it was already clear the way companies could interact with their customers over the web and involve the customers with their business in many ways. Maybe getting information to conceptualize new products, getting the customers, help them conceptualize a new product, develop a new idea, have the customers involved in designing a product. It's two different stages, because two different tasks, because conceptualizing is still at a more ideal, or involve more ideas in their first stages, and product design is something that happens after you already have those ideas. You decided on which ones are the ones you're going to implement, and you're really trying to implement something, right? Product testers, product support specialists, product marketers. Weirdly enough, they don't mention product manufacturers. They don't mention companies involving their customers in a way that the customers produce their products. And I see that happening all the time, right? It's again a way of collective intelligence. getting the collective intelligence to do your business for you. That's exactly what happened with Facebook, for example. Right? Facebook, what is the product there? Content. Who provides us with the content? Ourselves, right? Not, well, of course, we're not providing the content for ourselves, but we are all providing content for each other. Facebook is not providing any content. It may be making sure that we provide content when we don't provide content. It finds a way of pretending that we did. There's some weird things that happen there. But the idea is the content that is there is produced by the users. The users become the manufacturers. And that's I would put it inside this broad definition of collective intelligence. I'm using the collective intelligence of others, putting them together, and building something of value. In this case, value for Facebook, of course, right? In fact, I usually say that we're not the consumers there. We became the products, right? We make, and this is the case in many of these products that are given to us by for free. Right? We, as Milton Friedman used to say, there is no free lunch. So always be a little concerned about free lunches that appear to be around, because usually free lunch you pay the expensive dinner afterwards as a compensation. So it's an interesting perspective again. These authors are not mentioning about, they don't mention collective intelligence here at any instance. And that's probably why I was so late into realizing that what I enjoyed researching was collective intelligence. Nobody mentioned the term. But, I mean, when you put your customers to do the work for you, you're using their intelligence for your purposes. Again, this is only one of the ways in which we'll see collective intelligence being used. And in fact, in many ways, I hope that we can use collective intelligence to do good for the collective, not necessarily to one company or another. Although many may claim that Facebook is really good for everyone, and Google and so on. So, yeah. Yeah, OpenStreetMap. Okay, we have a question here. I don't know if whoever is at a distance can hear, but the question here is if OpenStreetMap is an example of collective intelligence. It definitely is. When Thiago talks about his research in one of our future meetings, he will be talking about things that are similar to that, ways of you collecting, again, information that people the track that people live in, whatever way they live today, because we are all living a lot of electronic track of whatever we're doing, and ways that you can build knowledge from that, right? So in fact, my original title for this course would be collective intelligence and knowledge management. But then I thought that we would have to think of the web so much in our electronic social networks that may be the title that it has now made more sense. But I mean, collective intelligence has to be related to knowledge building and knowledge management. And again, there is an issue there. Who manages that knowledge? Is it managed towards the benefits of all, or will any smarter party there get it all for themselves? We don't know. That's something that we will probably discuss. Okay. So I like this diagram here. I think it's incomplete. I don't know why they missed the product producer, right? They're thinking about some of the stages of design. They're thinking about some of the stages of after sales, but weirdly, they don't mention that now companies put their customers even to produce the products that they're selling, even with those customers directly. Okay? So this is another paper that's and it's all, again, Makina and Nambisa, they're both related to the first vector of Venkataraman and Henderson's proposed model. They're talking about ways of harnessing information and intelligence from the customers. And then I have another paper here, which is not really a paper, it's an interview with Michael Dell. I've been using this paper for ages. It's probably one of my favorites because Michael Dell gives here an interview in which he discusses the strategies of a company that was much shiner, or was much more interesting a few years ago than it is right now, but it's still, as a business model, as the way it was organized, the way it structured itself, it's still a very interesting model because it was based on the technologies that were available and the new mindsets that were becoming also available to start an organization that would do a business, would do the same business that others did in the past in a completely different way, IBM, Compaq, Dell, Compaq, HP, but would turn that into which was selling computers, and turn that into a other product again, to benefit from modules, assembling modules and the pizza man way, and delivering the exact product that each customer wanted. So this interview shows a lot, or discuss a lot of Vector 1 of Venkataraman and Henderson's paper, relating to customers and understanding what customers need. And then it also shows a lot of Vector 2 because Dell uses the information that the company gets from the customers to provide direct information to the suppliers and make sure that the suppliers develop the right modules that will be assembled or that will be put together in Dell's product. So the two first vectors are really very well contemplated here in this interview. It's very easy to read because it's just an interview, and I recommend that you do. It probably also shows a little bit of how new technologies allow new ways of doing things to new companies, but sometimes prevented the companies that were already in the markets benefit from the new possibilities, right? Many of the companies that already do business in a certain way, they are imprisoned, they are locked in by their own previous, well, the culture and their mindsets, but also their structures. The way they structure their business is not easily changed, right? Think of the way we structure this business here, education. It's not very easily changed from a teacher here in the front and students sitting and watching what a teacher has to say, although this doesn't make sense in the long run. Right? This is another instance in which collective intelligence will definitely mean the way to go in the future. Right? But the first things that we will have to change is structure. Right? These rooms with lots of benches all facing the same direction, they do not allow for the new ways that are more, well, that would work better with the technologies that supports education today, in class and outside class, right? I remember that I had a geography teacher that I thought was the best teacher I had in, I think year 6 or year 7 in school. I was 11 or 12 years old. He would come to class and he would dictate questions and answers. And we would take notes. We had to be really fast to take notes of everything that he said. But I really liked this professor because, the questions and answers were okay, this thing that we had to learn, but sometimes he stopped and said, now, for you to rest, I will tell you a joke, right? And then the joke part was the part that we really remembered. But the rest of the class, we were, writing as crazy to be sure that we were able to get the contents, right? He had the contents in one of the very old notebook that he probably had for 20 years of teaching, and every semester he would dictate the contents to the students. It was okay 30 years ago, but it would be absolutely unacceptable today, but it still is sort of what we do most of the time. We may not be dictating any longer, but there's still, there's still someone here saying or talking about their experience, and everyone else trying to relate that experience with the world that is not necessarily like that any longer. Right? So, in order to benefit from the new possibilities of that technology has helped our society to develop, we have to deal with old structures, but they are very strong. Right? In this interview with Michael Dell can be very clear about Dell's strategy to the market, even to the competition. Because in general, we would like to have our strategies, we would like our customers to know the strategy, because the strategy somehow also explain what our values are and what we think that we can offer the customers. We would like, of course, our employees to know about the strategy so that we can help and support the strategy. But it would be good if the competition were not to be aware of it. Unfortunately, it's impossible. A secret of 2 is not a secret any longer. A secret of 1,000 definitely isn't. So he was very easy on telling the strategy to everyone, because he knew that the competition, specifically IBM, Compaq, and HP, that were the other big companies in the computer markets in the late 90s, none of them could mimic Dell's strategy. None of them would be able to aggressively sell computers over the web based on a modular. Well, the computer was based on a modular structure for everyone, but Dell was able to use the modules to build computers that would solve the specific problems of each customer. So Dell was being able to establish that dialogue with the customers. The competition couldn't do the same because their structure already involved points of sale, like retailers that were expecting to have those companies, IBM, Compaq, HP, they were expecting to have their products on a shelf that customers could go, see, eventually experiment, and buy and take home, right? Dell knew that if those companies started trying to sell computers over the web, or at least if they tried to do that in a more aggressive way, they would probably start having problems with their traditional sales partners, and that would not be very good for the business, because those traditional sales partners sold 99% of Dell's business, right? Yeah, Magreta is also something. Well, this interview with Michael Dell also shows a lot of how to build collective intelligence, engaging customers to one side and suppliers at the other. It doesn't say much about. I guess it does. It does say something about knowledge building, because of course his argument is that he built a lot of knowledge from the interaction with the customers, and he passes that knowledge to suppliers. But let's say it's not, the third vector is not as clear in that paper. And then we have a last paper from my Information Systems and Organizations course that deals with open innovation. Right? Open innovation is a term that has been used. I think Chesbrough coined the term in 2003, but it has been used to talk about these possibilities of innovation not happening necessarily inside organizations, of companies being able to get information from, get innovation from the market eventually over the web, like my experience with extracting a fork from that was important to my business. Right? In fact, it is, because I was able to put beer inside that bottle, but open innovation involves not considering your research and development department as the only source or the major source of knowledge building for the organization. It's again a new paradigm. Not many companies, the traditional companies that have had research and development departments for years, they will not find it very easy to adapt or to change to this new concept. Not only because it's a different way of thinking, but also because what do they do with respect to all those engineers that they have in the research and development department, right? It's also a structural problem, right? If you already have some sort of structure, you can't just say, well, this arm is not good any longer, I'll cut it off, right? It's part of your body. It's, you can do it, but it's hurtful, and it takes longer than for someone who's building a new structure from scratch. Okay? Well, so having done that, let me see if I can go back to the other. I don't know how to go back now. I have to do here. No. I want to get rid of this screen. That's it is working. No. Oh no. Okay. I am making ads, but how do I stop making ads? Someone else is trying to. I'm going to go back. Do this. Okay. No. No. How do I go to my other? Anyone see anything there that can help me? Parar control. Maybe it's. Oh, good. Okay. So let me go to our original. Maybe this one. Yes, that original. And I want to have here our. No, that's not this one. This one? No, this one. That's it. Okay. So when I was starting to think of the course, I came up. Well, I ended up seeing this Aristotle saying in the Politics, which is one of the famous books of the Greek literature, right? And one of those that have changed. I think someone else is in control of my screen. Let me see. It's not what I. Okay. This is what I wanted. Here I wanted. You know that the Greeks have influenced a lot the way we think today. In fact, collective intelligence is also something that happens over time. It's not only a matter of sharing ideas with other humans of today. We're always sharing ideas with those that thought in the past, that wrote in the past, and that still influence the way we think. So it's very easy to understand why, by reading what this guy wrote here, why our societies these days are so keen on democracy, right? Look at that. He says, for the many of whom each individual is but an ordinary person, when they meet together, may very likely be better than the few good. Right? So the ordinary together may be better than the few good, if regarded not individually but collectively. Just as a feast to which many contribute is better than a dinner provided out of a single purse. Right? So maybe when we have our pizza, it's not going to be just pizza, it's going to be pizza, but some other people bring other stuff, right? So that it's not just one contributing to it. For each individual among the many has a share of virtue and prudence. And when they meet together, they become, in a matter, one man. You see now, this is what I would call the global mind, or the global, right? We are becoming just one single neuron on a much larger brain that is all our brains connected together. It's a way of thinking collective intelligence as well. One man who has many feet and hands and senses, that is a figure of their mind and disposition. Hence, the many are better judges than a single man of music and poetry, for some understand one part and some understand another, and among them they understand the whole. Right? And then maybe you remember that traditional Indian legend about the 6 blind men and the elephant, in which each one of the blind men, by experiencing the elephant in a different way, one of them holding the trunk, the other one touching the belly of the elephant, and so on. Each one of them had a different experience, and they were not able to understand the whole because they were not willing to understand their different or discuss their different perspectives. Right? I think a collective intelligence happens exactly when each one of us having a different perspective, can bring that perspective into a discussion where that specific knowledge becomes important to make something that is bigger than that. Right? Pierre Lévy, a French contemporaneous writer, is very well. He has this saying that collective intelligence shows us that every human being has their own value. I mean, it's not the smartest people that know the way of getting a cork out of a bottle, right? But someone knows. If we can get the information and the knowledge of humankind, if we can organize that in a way that we can benefit from those who have the knowledge on each specific need that we may have on Earth, we may build a society that is much stronger by putting everyone together than each one working on their own. Right? So maybe this would be a good moment for us to go to our forum and try and do some of the discussion there. I will close this. Let me see if we have. I will close now the Adobe Connect for today. Right, so we will not interact by voice any longer. Also because we still have to learn how to deal with some of the problems that we had today here, and we'll get into the. Well, maybe I'll go back there. Show you here in my screen. The only problem is coming back from this, but okay, in my screen, but I want to go here. We have a forum, a discussion, where I have here the discussion of assigned papers, right? Okay, I posed some very, today we'll not be able to, you're not going to be able to probably pose questions on those papers specifically because they are papers that you haven't read, except for those who were my students in some other subject before. But I have already posed some general questions there that we can start on discussing. And eventually, when and if you have time to read any of those papers, we can always go back there and keep posting our impressions about them. So we'll do that now, and then our assignment for maybe we'll spend another half an hour or so doing that, and then our assignment for next week is reading something about, we're still not going to discuss what collective intelligence is. We'll discuss a little bit of what we're calling there, wisdom of the crowds. There are a few items there to be read, chapters 1 and 2 of Surowiecki. And then as Surowiecki mentions, for example, Galton 1907, right? And as the Grand Oracle was able to very quickly send me to Galton's 1907 paper on nature, it is already there, so it's a short paper, so it's easy to read. I have we'll have also a paper by Green and Page. I don't know if you're familiar with these two guys. Have you heard of them? Mr. Green and Mr. Page, two doctorate students of Stanford, 1998. From 1999, they released Google. Right? This was the paper where they described their collective intelligence project for Google. It's there for your interest. I think it's sort of okay to read, even if you're not computer science people. It's okay, and it's not essential to our discussion, but it's interesting. And then there is another very short text by the same Surowiecki from 2014 that we can also read. But basically, the two chapters, two first chapters of that book. Okay, for next class. So let's go to the discussion.